So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to today's SJW's Gone Wild. Um, we are currently broadcasting with the Miss Dawn, with the Crazy Logic, and Calvin. So the two of them are going to be with me today for ableism. Now, before we start, I just want to say that I'm currently ableist. Whoa. Ugh. We are currently broadcasting with the Miss Dawn, with the Crazy Logic, and Calvin. Let's start over again. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to SJW's Gone Wild. Today on the program, we're going to be discussing ableism. Today's guests are Miss Crazy Logic, who has muted herself, or I muted her, one of the two.
Hey.
You two do have some background noise, so just trying to mute when you're not talking, because it was coming through pretty bad earlier.
I think somebody who has the YouTube channel opened up doesn't have the YouTube channel muted.
Right. So, today we're going to be talking about ableism. And we also have Mr. Calvin. Calvin? Say hi, Calvin.
Is Calvin muted?
No, Calvin's coming through pretty clear static-wise. Well, apparently Calvin's gone mute. So today we're going to be talking about ableism and what the SJWs view as ableism. So I figured I would start with a little lesson. You guys ready for a lesson?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm Vix. Go ahead.
All right, do try to mute yourselves if you have a little bit of background noise, okay? So I'm going to start with a little lesson. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to look up ableism in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, because the Merriam-Webster dictionary tends to be pretty good. Unfortunately, it has Google corrected me to albinism, so give me just a second.
That doesn't sound appropriate at all.
No, it doesn't. So, ableism from the Merriam-Webster dictionary is defined as such: prejudice or discrimination against disabled people. Now, I'm going to open myself up to this. I'm disabled. I have a number of what are called mental disabilities, which make it hard for me to do things such as drive a car, ride a bike, do long strings of numbers, that sort of thing. I'm dyslexic and dyspraxic, and I also have bipolar disorder. So today's topic is one of the things that I was most interested in my SJW days. And unfortunately, that was one of the big things for me at that time. And so a lot of what we're going to be dealing with today, I've seen and dealt with on a very personal level. So if anyone else wants to talk about how they're connected to this topic today, I would just love to hear it. But on my end, this is coming from understanding where these people are coming from, and yet understanding that what's going on is just insane.
Yeah, just clarify. I also have a disability in the form of high-functioning autism, and a pretty severe anxiety disorder. So again, I also understand where a lot of these people are coming from, especially since I have actually experienced workplace discrimination in the past.
Calvin?
And I suffer from a severe case of white syndrome, wherein my skin is uncharacteristically white and I am Caucasian. As far as I'm aware, there isn't a cure. It is tragic.
Calvin's neurotypical. I guess is what you'd say in today's lingo. But he is a very intelligent, very empathetic, and very kind man who I do respect immensely.
I have half of Tumblr that would prove you wrong, but so be it.
Well, half of Tumblr doesn't know you as well as I do. So, So that being said, this is our roundtable discussion. 2 disabled young women and a young man who's willing to talk and learn and who is incredibly intelligent. So when we enter this today, we understand that there are people who are truly disabled and who truly have problems and struggle with them every day. And those people deserve not only our empathy, but our support, our love, and our kindness. But what they don't deserve is to be infantilized, and that seems to be the way that most ableism threads go. They seem to focus less on what these people can do and more on what they can't do and the struggles of their everyday lives. I have a friend who's not listening right now, but who promised to listen and may be on our 2nd part of the ableism series, who currently has cerebral palsy. He is wheelchair bound, and he is also a very intelligent young man. He is disgusted by some of the things we read to him the other night in preparation for this show. And one of the things he has said to me many, many times is that the only reason he's able to function as well as he is because he did it out of spite and because he needed it. He needed that independence. So when you're infantilized, when you're telling people to stop doing things because it might offend a disabled person, you're really just taking them away from the drive that might push them to be better. And that's what we hope to impart today. We hope to impart that we come at this from a caring perspective, but also from a perspective of you can't speak for these people or even speak for your self-diagnosed self if you aren't looking to improve yourself. If you're just looking to sit around and be disabled, then that's fine, but that's not what most disabled people want. Most disabled people, I know I do, I know Crazy does, want to get to a point in their life where they're able to do things regardless of their disability, not unable to do things because of their disability. And it's a hard road, and it's a struggle. And you know, my bipolar does not make it easy for me to function. My nonverbal doesn't make it easy to function. My dyspraxia, my dyslexia make it incredibly difficult to function. But when I find a way around them, it's so satisfying. So, yeah. Just as we're talking about this, I want you to understand that we're doing it from a point of love, and we're doing it not for the people who are coming here to listen to us from the Hug Patrol, because we want you guys listening, but we know you'll agree with us. We're hoping that somebody will be sitting out there who will hear this and understand that this is not the way to get ahead in the world, and that your disabilities don't have to hold you back. You just have to be smarter than your disabilities. You have to fight them. And the fight is hard and tough, okay? And Tumblrites, they're trying, but they just feel like they want to give up. But and they want people to cater to them, but that's not the way to get through it. You have to fight on your own and with the support of others, and you have to do so because the world's not going to change for you. You're going to change the world. And to do that, it's going to mean facing things that upset you, that hurt you, and accepting that they will always exist, but that they don't really mean anything. Now, that is not to say that there isn't true workplace discrimination, that you aren't discriminated against for your disabilities. there is a prejudice, but I want to point out that in the dictionary definition that I just read, ableism is not a prejudice and discrimination. It is a prejudice or discrimination. And unfortunately, discrimination for disabled people happens all the time. And sometimes it's good discrimination. Oh no, you've said it. I've said the word good discrimination. But no, seriously, guys. There is such a thing as good discrimination. I'm not going to let someone on a ride if they don't have a bottom half of their body that will allow them to be strapped into the ride because it's dangerous. You have to discriminate sometimes. It's when that discrimination comes from a place of prejudice that true ableism occurs. And true ableism, discrimination from a place of prejudice, is wrong. Okay? And that happens a lot. It happens with people who are mentally ill. It happens with people who have autism. It happened to Crazy. I've had it happen to me. And it's very horrible. But you cannot turn this important word into, well, a bland nothingness, because that's what ableism is right now. It's a catch-all word for any time that a Tumblrite feels that someone is judging them for their disability. It is a catch-all term for a Tumblrite that means that they use a word that you don't like, so that's ableism. That's not ableism. That's you getting upset at something that refers to your disability. And I'm very sorry if you feel that way. But unfortunately, when you start controlling words, you start to slide down a very slippery slope. So, yeah. So Crazy wants to get a little more in depth with what was going on with her so that we can have a good solid foundation about what it is.
Okay, so basically what happened was I was working at a dog daycare. I disclosed that I am autistic to my boss at the time, and I did not know this law at the time, but I've since learned. Your employer must aid you in disclosing with your coworkers when you have a non-visible disability. This counts for autism. He told me to my face that he would not help me disclose. That was the direct violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act and legal discrimination. He also told me that I was never going to interact with the customers at all because of my disability, because my social skills are not instinctive to me. Those are two very legal, solid cases of workplace discrimination for someone with autism. However, there were other things where I combined with what else was going on did also count as discrimination, but alone would just be everyone being assholes, which is holding me up to unfair standards of social interaction, never talking to me about when I offended them, even if they knew I was autistic, and generally just being passive-aggressive and complaining to my boss, who proceeded to not talk with me about it until my review, where he said he was tempted to dock my pay, but wasn't going to because he felt bad for me.
By the way, being an asshole is not illegal and should never be illegal.
Yeah. Being an asshole is not illegal. His way of handling my issues with my coworkers alone would just be being an asshole and a terrible boss. And honestly, he did that with every other worker there. It was a somewhat miserable place to work. However, since he combined it with knowing that I would not be able to tell when people were angry with me, knowing that I had autism, and refusing to aid me in any capacity in accommodations that he was legally required to do, made this a case of discrimination.
So, let me clarify this again. We believe that legitimate ableism exists, and that legitimate ableism should be discussed and talked about. What we do not believe exists is half the shit we find on Tumblr.
Oh yeah.
So with that beautiful segue, let's start with the shit we cannot believe exists and how we respond to it. Calvin, you've not been on the show before, but did you listen to last week's episode?
I did.
All right, so last week's episode was a little special, but we're going to follow the same general routine. We're going to pop up a few good discussion topics, and then we're going to review it. And we're going to have a roundtable discussion. So let's go with the first one.
All right. These are going to be in no particular order, just how they're organized in my folder.
Now, we are focusing pretty securely on disability mentally this week. Next week, we'll probably be doing kind of a combo of fat shaming and ableism to physicalities.
Mainly because Tumblr doesn't seem to give a damn about physical disability.
Which is weird.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
all mental disability.
I do want to point out that they do correlate fat with being a physical disability, but that'll be discussed next week.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it, and we'll get into it next week. There's a reason why Tumblr doesn't really talk much or think much on physical disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So here's the first one, which I've had up for a few seconds. Here, let me zoom in so the font isn't as tiny. Ability. Abled people. Can you do the thing? Disabled people. Now this now is more of a combo example. Disabled people. Technically yes, but it would hurt like hell, / ruin my day, / trigger a flare, / exhaust me, / be a fall risk, / make me more sick, and then I would have to spend a day in bed, / increase my dosage, / cancel all my other plans, / spend a week recovering afterwards. Able people. But you can do it. This one annoys me because the "but you can do it" is generally an encouraging thing, pointing out that it's not impossible.
Indeed, and sometimes it can be hard. Like, I've had people in my social circles who are like, it's very difficult for me to read a situation, especially when I'm tired. And they'll be like, but you can read the situation, right? Well, yes, but it would be a bit like asking you to drive 6 hours and then go on a shopping trip. It's going to lead to bad things. But, you know, However, this is just part of having a disability. People are going to be uninformed, and you can't just kind of throw up your hands and be like, I don't need to inform you about anything, and you trying is just this horrible thing.
There's also the fact that at some points, with this thing, part of it is you can do it. It's just hard or more difficult than the average person and tires you out. So it's not that you can't, it's that you don't want to do it, which is something I've come across many times in my life of just me going, I can do this, but it will be hard, and I don't want to deal with that right now. And the problem is that so many people are not willing to admit that.
Exactly. And it's okay if you can't do something. It's okay to say, hey, look, like I have something tonight that I may not go to, even though we'll probably end the stream before it, because I just might not have the energy. And it's okay for me to sit there and say, you know what? I love the people I go to be with, but I just don't have the energy.
I think another side of this is if this person is actually dealing with people in their lives who do not accept that they have real hardship that's going to be caused by, exerting themselves in these kinds of ways, then why are they keeping these people around? Why are you surrounding yourself with people who refuse to acknowledge that, your mental capacity is limited to such an extreme when you're overexerting yourself that you're going to be wiped out for the next couple days, and it's going to cause you problems if you go and hang out at the lake next weekend, or go on a trip, or go to the club, or whatever. If you're surrounding yourself with those types of people, then then it's really on to you as to why you keep their company in the first place.
Yeah,
If they're not willing to accept it, then that's on you for why you're letting them even be there.
yeah, and I've got social anxiety is part of my laundry list, and I've been told don't avoid social situations just because it tires you out. It's well, it can be tiring. It's also a bit like flexing a muscle. If I'm good and I'm seeking treatment and doing things and not pushing myself too hard, it will get slightly easier or less of a problem if I don't flat out avoid it and just give up.
Yeah, I mean, it is spoon theory in action, as Hemlock Breakfast has pointed out. But the thing is, if you exercise your spoons, you get more spoons. So, yeah, I understand that this girl knows her limits, and she should feel able to say no. But the encouragement coming from the abled person is just that. It's encouragement. You can do it. You don't have to doubt yourself on this.
Yeah, and part of it is also she's not outright saying no. She's giving excuses instead of just saying, I'd rather not.
Exactly. It's just, you should be able to say, look, I'd rather not, and the person who you are talking to should be able to respect that. And if the person...
Even if you're not disabled, going, I don't feel like it is a valid thing you can say.
Yeah.
Dealing with my father has a severe physical trauma, a severe physical injury, so I can relate to the how tired and exhausted you would be after trying to exert yourself, and I really do understand that having a mental disability can really exhaust a person. When we're trying to negotiate on a family function with him, he often brings up his physical limitations, and just as much as anyone would bring up their mental limitations, and we have to negotiate how we're going to proceed with the action to include him in it, to make sure that he's able to be there, but also to try to make sure that when we come home, or when he comes home to rest, that we find a way that it's not as taxing on him, and that he can find a way to continue with his responsibilities afterwards. Because him being in a position, him being a dad, he wants to be responsible. He wants to be able to do his work and that kind of thing. So if we go out and we enjoy our day at the beach and it exhausts him, he's going to be out for the next week, and it's going to be a lot of pain for him. So when you just throw out that, no, I can't do anything, no, I can't do that thing because I'm disabled, it's going to cause me pain, and the people on the other end are responding, well, but you can do it, we can find a way, and you're like, no, I'm just gonna sit here and not engage at all with a social life. I'm not going to make any effort at all, because I'm going to allow the pain, the potential pain that I might receive, to control my current behavior. Then you shouldn't be surprised when you're lonely, when you don't have anybody else in your life that are willing to help you, because you haven't made any effort. Yes, that effort might be much greater for you, but you haven't made it in order to keep them in contact.
Oh, well, Green Hair says the spoon theory seems rather unnecessary. Doesn't everyone have a limited stress and threshold and energy level? Yes, but I guess the spoon theory was more of a way to put it into perspective how having a chronic disability drains you quicker than a normal person would. So you may have a normal threshold, but the drain just is harder on you. I know when I worked at my old job, which was a theme park, I came home grumpy and crying, and I basically had no energy ever to do anything, and I drew into myself and I focused on just one or two people because that's all I could deal with. Now that I have a job that's a lot less stressful on my body and my mentality, I'm actually a lot. Well, I'll ask Calvin. Calvin, am I better since I've gotten this job?
The one where you're not physically exerting yourself, absolutely. When you've got a buffer between you and the people you're dealing with, absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, that buffer is an absolute necessity, but when I was frontline at a theme park and I was physically exerting myself, I was just going into debt energy-wise. So I wasn't even waking up with full energy. I was waking up having had to catch up from the earlier day. So the spoon theory is supposed to be that as a representation. But yeah,
It's now turned
it's
into now I only have 5 spoons to deal with people.
yeah, it's
And
like
people
they're
have like spoon-o-meters on their blogs. It's ludicrous.
yeah. So it's not even particularly useful anymore, but it started out as a way to teach people who might not have those limitations what it was like to have those limitations, and to understand that drain was worse for the person. So I don't fault it for being a thing, but it's been so diluted at this point that it's just like any other measurement for people on Tumblr. It's it's basically how much am I willing to how much am I willing to discriminate against people who have it better than me. So
Next one.
yep.
Honestly, don't get me started on the ableism/classism/racism of policing people's grammar, etc. in fic. If an author is asking for feedback specific to their grammar/spelling/language usage, go ahead. If they aren't, read it or move along. And like some of the tags are, I don't know what else to tell you, but some people speak 3 languages. Some people have learning disabilities, some people didn't get the education you did. Deal with it or move on, laughing my ass off. Here's the thing, when people, like, I'm assuming this is for the practice of beta readers, which is somebody, reading your fan fiction before you publish it, in order to get a good idea of how people think of it. And honestly, that's necessary.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Like, it's not ableist to correct someone's spelling. It's not classist to say that you need to use proper grammar in a novel.
It's certainly not racist, but that's a different topic altogether.
Yeah. So let me make this clear. When people are correcting your grammar, as long as they aren't doing it specifically to nitpick you, they're probably generally trying to make it so you can communicate better. The quality of writing, I find, on any given fanfic, and I write fanfics, I write novels, and I'll tell you, I don't have a perfect grasp of grammar. But the general, when I'm reading a fanfic and the grammar is so bad that I cannot understand what the fuck you are saying, I'm not going to read. I'm not going to be able to appreciate your art if you can't communicate it effectively with me. Yeah, I mean, well,
it would just be like asking, you're listening to a piece of music from a composer or an artist of some stripe, and they don't have any concept of how to use the instrument that they're working. So when they're trying to play a piece, even one that may be self-rendered, that you won't be able to understand what's going on. It'll sound like noise to you, and then you come to them like, that didn't sound good, that didn't sound appealing. Well, you can't judge me. Why are you classist, ableist, racist jerk? What do you expect me to know music theory? So when I play my musical instrument, yes, I do. I do expect you to understand basic music theory if you're going to be playing some music. So it's the same thing in other places. If you don't have a mastery of, if you do not have a mastery of your artistic expression, then do not get haughty and have an air of superiority over people that want to come to you and say, look, I'm going to point out some things that I think you can improve on when you're working your art. That's just rude.
And you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was saying you don't have to be Shakespeare or Mark Twain to write a good fan fiction or a good novel. but a basic grasp of spelling and grammar and using the correct words goes a long way. I mean, for example, one of the biggest examples of a word not being used well that made people laugh was in Twilight, actually. Bella's swan skin was described as translucent. Now, you could argue that you saying that Bella Swan was so pale her veins were visible, but most people were like, so her muscles are visible underneath her skin?
I do want to point out that upon you mentioning Twilight, the room dropped. Just funnily, that seems to happen a lot with Twilight. But yes, Twilight and My Immortal is another one. My Immortal is quite clearly a troll fic, but you could only imagine someone who was writing that fic and how just hard it would be to deal with reading that fic if that person was really serious.
There are a few that are as bad as My Immortal that are serious.
Yeah, so let's not kid ourselves. It's not ableist. If you honestly do not have the ability to understand grammar, and again, when I was a kid, my dyspraxia showed up in really weird ways, and one of it was I had this thing where I didn't like how a period looked because the period was just weird to my dyspraxia. So I just scattered commas all over. And one of my teachers once told me, you are never to use a comma again. You are only going to use full sentences. And that's because I was basically writing huge, big, long run-on sentences that never stopped. And so she'd have a 5-page paper that was just one big, long sentence. So you know, I would have never gotten to the point where I could appreciate grammar and want to write. I mean, if I could write as a living, I would. But want to write as a hobby, unless that teacher had put her foot down and forced me to understand what I was doing wrong. And it helped me immensely. And I didn't like her for it because I thought she was mean and nitpicky, but that doesn't mean that she was ableist. She was just trying to help me be a better person.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate when people correct my spelling or point out that that a sentence makes no sense. And again, I've got dyslexia too, so.
All right, next up. Hello? Things are going in and out. Testing on Dawn.
Hello, this is Dawn.
Crazy Logic. You there?
I think we lost her.
There. Here I am.
She's here. She's here. Yay.
Yay.
Stupid internet.
Apparently the patriarchy does not like us talking about how ableism is not a horrible thing.
Or my internet.
Or how,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Twitter ableism, because that's what I'm going to call it now. How Twitter and Tumblr ableism are not a bad thing.
Alright. Here, and this one's my personal favorite.
Oh, God.
Disorder is an ableist slur.
Ah!
Here, let me zoom in for you guys. Having a disorder literally means that something is not working properly. True. Applying the concepts to neurotypes is rooted in the pathology paradigm. Stupid words. And reinforces the idea that there is one proper way for a person to function. There is one proper way for a person to function.
Oh, continue.
For the sake of neurodiversity, we need to eliminate the use of disorder in this context. To keep the initialisms that people already know, let's try calling things dynamics instead. OCD, obsessive-compulsive dynamic. GID, gender identity dynamic.
Continue. dissociative identity dynamic, autism spectrum dynamic, attention deficit dynamic. That last one doesn't even make sense.
Tagged disorder, ableism, language reclamation, neurodiversity, and pathology.
No, 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 no. No. No.
Where? At what point do we? Okay, I'm going to. I found it. I found the dictionary that will be in existence in 20 years. Do you want to hear me? I'm going to read out some of the words.
Okay, go for it. He's managed to make a time machine just via the complete wrongness of this, and now he's going to read us a 20-year future dictionary. Go for it, dude. Or not. Everything's gone quiet.
I've been reading the words. You've been interrupting me.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, there's a lot of words here. Let me continue reading.
I get it.
Your laughter's interrupting.
I get it. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm going to interrupt you here, and I'm going to give you guys a psychology perspective. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I have a bachelor's in psychology. I am by no means a trained therapist, but I'm hoping to go into trained therapy. And since we've just lost our wonderful, wonderful, crazy logic, I'll take up the air. No, this is not how this works. No. Okay, there are 4 Ds that every psychology student learns. Unfortunately, I've been out of college just a bit too long to call them off the top of my head, but they're essentially disorder, dysfunction, distress, and I always forget the 4th D. It's like divergence or something. So the concept is if you have 3 out of the 4 of those, you probably have a disorder. Which is why stuff like calling yourself a little OCD, it doesn't mean you necessarily have OCD. It means you show quirks of that. Having a legitimate mental disorder, and again, self-diagnosis is going to be its own fucking topic, but let me touch on this. Self-diagnosis is really, really difficult to support because not all of you have sat through 5 years of college to learn how to diagnose and to understand what the difference between a personality quirk and an actual like disorder is. But turning disorder into dynamic changes what it means in the psychological sense. A dynamic is how a brain functions, and all people have similar dynamics. A disorder is referring specifically to how the person differs from the dynamic that most people believe in. So when you say that you're changing it to a dynamic, you're pretending that there's thousands and thousands of ways for a human brain to function properly, when really a lot of these disorders, yes, you're back. A lot of these disorders are just that. They're not dynamics. The main way the brain is attempting to function has not changed. What has changed is that there's a hiccup in this, and it causes various things. OCD is caused by a hiccup in the brain. Dawn, you're going to want to go ahead and share to everyone if you can.
All right, I think you need to.
Yeah. So OCD is caused by.
I'm trying to share to everyone. I think you need to put me as presenting.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. How do I do that? OCD is caused by a literal hiccup in the brain's chemistry. Gender identity disorder is not even a hiccup at all. it's not even a disorder. I think they're taking gender identity disorder out as a disorder and making it a cognitive thing. Dissociative identity dynamic, that would mean you literally had dissociative identities that function differently. Changing the word changes the meaning. In actual psychology, changing the word changes the meaning. So I know you want to be touchy-feely, huggy-lovey, but it's not how psychology works. We want to make it so you can be huggy, touchy-feely, lovey, but when we're actually sitting down and diagnosing you, we have to treat you as a scientist, which means we use the words that mean the things they mean. Stop trying to change language so you can control how other people feel about it.
Yeah.
Ah!
I also want to point out, and this is somebody with mental illness. I have OCD. I have autism. I've got ADD. I have freaking PTSD. Really, there is something not working properly in your brain when you have these sorts of things, and there really is one proper way for the brain to function. That's all about physiology. Mental illness is generally caused by a physiological problem in the brain.
Or
it would be like having something somewhat different about your heart, and it interferes with your life. Just because it's with the brain doesn't mean that it's any different from any other improper way for your organs to function.
Or even cognitive thought disorders are still disorders because we have a bell curve of things that are normal within human society. So you have the most normally normalist normal people who don't really exist, by the way. It's just like your ideal normal mental person. And we've got people who go on either end of the spectrum. And it's only at the last 5% on either end of the spectrum. So that's 90% of the population falls within a normal, area. But it's only the 5% at the opposite ends of the spectrum that actually have anything we would have as a disorder. So there's a lot of human diversity within the neurological and social development. We don't just, it isn't just that you have this weird thing where you rub your head for good luck and oh my god, that's OCD. That's not OCD. OCD has to cause you distress. It has to cause problems in your life. There's a set of scientific points that you need to hit. And so throwing around different definitions for words only muddies the waters and just makes it wider so that there's eventually no normal and everyone's sick and then everyone has to be treated differently. And that just doesn't work as a science. So we have to agree on some level that there are quirks within human consciousness that are going to differ, but generally everyone does X, Y, Z. Now, there are theories on how people think, and the theories differentiate. I'm a Jungian. I met a Rajonian at my LARP game, but that doesn't mean that he thinks that people think completely differently. It's just where the root comes from. So, again, to try to change the science that we have been developing for 100 years because you don't like the word disorder, then you are selling people who legitimately need help via this science short. You need to get over yourselves and get over this.
I just found that the Medical Association of America is changing the wordage for AIDS to now be autoimmune dynamic. I think we need to move on to the next topic.
Just please move on, please.
We found psychologist's berserk button.
No. My science. My pretty little science.
Oops, wait.
To weigh in on it.
This is a physical one. Whoops, forgot to.
Before we just, as she's pulling it up, to weigh in on what was just said real briefly, if we're going to if mental disorder is to be treated as the same amount of science, medical science, as physical disorders or physical ailments and injuries, then you have to use specific language to know what everybody's talking about. When you start changing the wordage to mean other things, like like Shield said, you start muddying the meaning of everything, and it stops being a clinical definition that can be proven again and again and again. So that doctors have to be able to use specific language when they're writing out what they're talking about to insurance companies and to the pharmaceutical companies and to the federal government and justice systems. There has to be specific language used so everybody knows exactly what everyone is talking about. And you don't have a case where the federal government, for example, refuses to give money to an individual who actually has a diagnosis because the doctor didn't use the proper terminology.
And I'm going to make
if you call it a dynamic, there's nothing wrong with the person, so why do they even need federal money?
Exactly.
Well, they do need federal money because they have a mental disorder that is preventing them from carrying out life as a typical human being would. And in order to get for that person to be able to receive money, you have to tell the federal government in no uncertain terms that this person is sick in their brain, and the only treatment for that is a chemical process that is created through pharmaceutical drugs that this person it cannot pay for because they do not have a job. When you start changing the words, you start muddying and making life difficult for everybody. It's a disorder. It's not dynamic at all.
I pulled up the next one.
Okay. Go for it.
Nice ableism. Idiot is an ableist word. An idiot is censored, by the way, is an ableist word that no one can reclaim.
No,
This
that's
person is an
idiotic.
Yeah, I mean, I actually researched into this when this claim first started coming out. Idiot goes all the way back to ancient Greece. The root word for idiot is somebody that was not interested in participating in politics. In the English language, its use before it was a diagnosis was that of a layman, somebody who was not trained, who was not educated in a university.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor that originally made idiot a diagnosis was a fucking idiot because he used a word that was already very closely related to well-known insults. He was begging for it to become an insult and a term of, sorry, I'm losing the word, a condescending term because it already was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, words were in use that sounded like idiots that were insults. Heck, idiot itself may have already been considered an insult before it was a diagnosis.
And here's
It's fascinating that it's fascinating that this doctor, trained at, I assume, at some type of college or university, was using a term to talk about the plebeian idiots of the common rabble outside the university walls to compare to a person who was dealing with a mental diagnosis. That just fascinates me.
Well, it already had come to sort of mean stupid. So he was just literally diagnosing the person as stupid. Idiot, moron, and imbecile, when they were professional diagnosis, idiot was the highest functioning. Their IQs were, they could still function within society.
They were just
like
really
Forrest Gump level intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was, I can't remember which order was moron and imbecile. As far as I know, he made those words up, but probably not.
Moron was the next highest. Imbecile was the lowest. Imbecile means you're unable to actually function. Again,
Imbecile would eventually be changed to the diagnosis of mentally retarded.
I wonder if special is an ableist slur. Hemlock says. Yeah, it's starting to become one.
Charm in my public school system was an ableist insult because that was what the acronym for our special education program spelled out. And since it sounded like a compliment, the teachers didn't catch on. When my mother found out, she was pissed at my brother. He was grounded for like 2 weeks.
Just so you're aware, it's not really an ableist slur. If you use it and say, hey X, you're special, that can mean a lot of things. It's the tone you use it in. And this is why we shouldn't really tone police either, but tone policing would be more effective than word policing, because at least we want to be changing the meanings of words.
And honestly, most people tone police in the sense of, don't speak like that to me. which
Yeah.
is generally normal. Mothers do it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you should not. No one should police anyone else's speech and tone, but you should be aware that your tone is going to make or change the word. So yes, special is sort of an ableist slur, but it's not really. It's not like you should never use the term special ever.
Here's the thing. Are you calling someone an idiot or special because they have a mental disability or have an intelligence related disorder where their IQ is lower? You're being an ableist fuck. Are they an idiot because, I don't know, they tried to do a stunt where they tried to jump over a moving car? You're not being ableist. That person really is an idiot.
That person really is special. Like, that is legitimately special. They get to ride the short bus. Yay! But yeah, no, idiot is not an ableist slur. Idiot talks about your level of intelligence.
And implying that somebody who is less intelligent than the norm is automatically disabled is...
Ableist as fuck.
Yeah.
So no, this person is actually trying to make it an ableist slur, but it's not.
Yeah, and here we go. Here's the next one. For clarification, autistic means without autism. Originally that was neurotypical, but the rest of the mental health community appropriated that term to mean somebody without any form of mental illness. So now us autistics have claimed autistic. So, dear autistic people, please stop having such a narrow idea of what autism is because it makes it really hard to talk about your experiences when people keep going, "What? You're autistic? I never would have known. Wow."
Oh, thanks. That's actually a huge compliment. I mean,
That really is. I work my ass off to not offend people, not make social faux pas, and not seem autistic.
Yeah, and I have nonverbal, like I said, which is a higher form. It's just above the autism scale.
Although, technically you can be diagnosed with both. I have both diagnoses, because the root cause of them are different.
Yeah, but it's got the same sort of thing. I just cannot read facial features.
Yeah.
More the latter than the former. So,
Yeah, it's a compliment. But you know what's really the insult? You know what's really the insult? Well, that explains a lot. That I kind of get, depending on the tone, where it's like, oh, that explains that, and they're clearly thinking about a specific event that may have annoyed them. Yeah, I'd be annoyed, and then... But if they're like, oh, that explains a lot, and they're really condescending about it, I get pissed. Did I drop again?
No, you didn't. We're just listening to you.
Okay, I was just like, dear God, did I drop the mid-sentence?
No, we're just very fascinated by what you're saying.
Yeah, but again, tone is different. However, since I don't read tone, I immediately get defensive. I immediately go, okay, are they thinking of a specific event where I offended them and they didn't say anything? Or are they being condescending and saying, yeah, you act like an autistic fuck?
yeah, and for me, somebody has to actually tell me because visually trying to indicate confuses me. So I can understand the basis that a frown can mean many things, but I don't get enough of the information to actually translate that well. So if I manage to pull it off where I'm completely normal in people's eyes, then I'm happy. So yeah, I don't know what this person's problem is. It's really just clearly her being overly sensitive, and sorry, darling, you need to grow a thicker skin.
Yeah, I mean, I take it as a compliment when people can't tell I have autism. I take it as a compliment when people say, oh, I just thought you were quirky.
Yeah. What do you think, Calvin?
I generally agree that you can't to tell people that for these people to be making up so many words all over the place to better define themselves, or to be changing definitions of words and using different words to mean the same thing because it might be less triggering, or it makes them feel better. When they come to you when you're using a specific word to describe yourself because you feel it better defines you, and they're mad at you, just laugh at their stupid face, laugh at their idiotic face, because they are refusing to acknowledge that you have a specific identity that you're trying to reinforce with other people because it better defines who you are, and they are refusing to acknowledge that while at the same time enforcing that you have to use their verbiage when you're talking with them. And so that hypocrisy is just stupid on its face.
So yeah, I've had people give me grief for calling myself Crazy Logic on Twitter and Tumblr. Or, well, Crazy Logical one on Twitter, because Crazy Logic was taken. Found face.
Clearly Mark only focused on the front end of that sentence, but yes, I agree with him fully. Yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy in what we've been reading lately. Like, we could do a whole series of just, like, social justice hypocrisies. But I don't want to get into that. I want to get into
do a whole episode on word policing.
Oh, hell, that's going to happen. But what I mean is, we don't want to get into the negatives. Also, Green Hair says, sometimes it does explain a lot. It doesn't automatically explain the negatives, or the positives for that matter.
Yeah, like I said, when it explains a lot, I have to hesitate because I've had it said to me condescendingly before, and I've had it said to me positively before, or it's just like, oh, that explains why you're so goddamn quirky. I thought it was just because you were a Gemini.
Oh, God. I've never had Taurus explain away my quirkiness. Try as I might. Anyway,
yeah, like I said, it's all about tone, and I get defensive because I can't read voice tone and facial expression and body language too well.
He also says it's like gay people calling themselves the F word, which I only use because I do have a friend who requests I not use the term, and so I don't have anything wrong with people using that word. So if someone else wants to use the F word for me, that would be nice. But that's exactly what he wrote.
I'm not gonna, because I put that word in with the N word in the fact that I'm not categorized as being able to use that word.
Okay. I think that's a silly concept, but I can
No,
understand
that's growing up in the greater Boston area.
Fair enough.
Like, I cannot, like, it's been pounded into my brain so much, I cannot physically bring myself to say those words.
Same with me. Just because I don't want to offend my friend, but what I do want to say is that this is part of what me coming out of the SJW cultures. I still tone police myself, unintentionally. Like, I'm physically trying to make myself say it, but it hurts.
Well, part of the reason why I don't say it is also, again, I went to a private school, and kids had been expelled for saying those words. So you damn well better not say those words.
Anyway.
I think part of the tone, like the word policing, we'll self-censor ourselves because we understand that the words that we might use have real meaning. But for words like nigger and faggot, where they can be used by the people that they otherwise would be condescending towards, people of the general populace, they wouldn't use those words because they personally understand that those words have some kind of negative connotation, and our ability, our preference to self-police ourselves from using those words is more indicative that we are willing to regulate our own speech to ensure that other people aren't offended and aren't, they don't feel like they're excluded from our company. So,
oddly enough,
that when you're using when you're using these words, it comes from a place of your intention when you're using the word itself. But specifically when it comes to I'm a Southern man, I don't use the word nigger very much at all. And the only reason I'm using it here is to prove that it's really just a word. It's the intention behind the word that gives it any amount of power. And if you're refusing to use it, you can still acknowledge that the word has power. The moment you remove that power from the word itself is the moment it loses all meaning.
Yeah, I still won't say at least the N-word because I'm a small, well, I'm not a very small white girl, but I'm still a white girl and I'd probably get my ass kicked. There's also that factor in too. But oddly enough, there's one, word that I consider an ableist slur, and it's actually a bit of a personal trigger for me, despite it being not considered offensive at all where I grew up, and that's retard. And I can say that without getting the physical reaction when it's directed at me.
It seems she dropped.
Yeah, it sounds like she dropped out.
All right. So clearly we're talking out against SJW culture, and they're like, grrr!
It's the feminist hit squad. They're coming after us. She's got control of the PowerPoint, so we'll have to wait for her to come back. Oh, no, she's come back.
All right.
So,
for fuck's sake!
I do want to...
What's going on over there?
I don't know. It's probably the weather, but god damn it, Comcast!
So just so we're all aware, Polaris is having a very good discussion in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
He is saying, I don't think the N-word is as bad as murder. It's ridiculous. When someone gets murdered, we don't say he got M-worded. Also, people are giving these words far too much power, more than it should be, by making sure people don't use them. It's like when religious people tell you certain words are bad.
Oh no,
yeah, that's kind of what I meant. If our refusal to acknowledge that these words even exist in our language or vocabulary gives them a sense of power. So when we do hear them, we give them special attention. When we're using words like, let's be honest, the words like damn and hell and even fuck, they don't have as much cultural meaning as they did when I was a kid. If somebody said the word fuck on live television when I was a kid, and I'm only 27, they would have probably have been taken out on a railroad pike and tarred and feathered out of the town. So the continued use of the word has made it more acceptable in common vernacular, to the point where now kids are using the word fuck. And I'm, for me, growing up, not ever hearing that word from an adult to hearing it as an adult now from kids, that's kind of like a culture shock. I'm like, oh, kid, watch the language there, buddy. But, I understand that as time has progressed, these words have lost their power because they've become commonplace.
All right, just for context, the reason why I don't use the N-word or the F-word is, with the N-word, I went to middle school with a lot of kids who were black and would have kicked my ass without hesitation if I had said it. So my censoring myself is more fear of the wrath of God, sort of censoring myself. The high school, I also had several kids who probably would have kicked my ass, but one of my best friends was also gay, and that word really affected him, and I just never said it.
One of my absolute...
But, a word that is one of my trigger words, as I was trying to say when I dropped, retard, can use without flinching. If if it's directed at me, I still wince, despite the fact that I'm from frickin' Boston and retarded is said it's their replacement for fuck sometimes, I swear. But it doesn't affect, I don't use those words because they hurt someone else, not because they might hurt me. And I think it's just part of a thing, and also I was afraid of getting punched in the face in middle school.
For me, one of my best friends is gay, and he once told me if I ever used that word, he'd be very offended. And you know what? I respect him enough that I'm willing to censor myself for him. I'm not, on the other hand, going to censor myself just in case there's someone out there who's going to be offended if I use the word disorder. Yeah, so they are pretty derogatory, but here's the thing. I'm not seeing Polaris, who is making a very good argument. any different than I am Green Hair, who's also making an argument. I think that you get to choose what words you police, and it's what you're comfortable saying.
Yeah, like I will like. Well, I get uncomfortable with some of my friends who throw out those words all the time, being trolls. I will never word police them, and they don't mock me for being uncomfortable saying them. Although somebody once got mad at me for not spelling out the word in IRC, and I was just like, dude, you would have been got mad at me if I said it. And he was like, okay, yeah, you're right. That kid had no idea what he wanted.
All right. Moving on to the next one.
All right.
Yep.
DC Comics when it comes to writing villains.
Oh, I love DC Comics. Are we going to have a discussion on how deep and nuanced the Batman universe is?
Oh my god.
Actually, I think this mostly refers to the Batman universe.
Okay, cool. I can do that.
I'm mentally ill. Feel me. I'm crazy and mentally ill. I enjoy pain and death and themed costumes and badly portrayed vague laundry lists of symptoms and combined disorders. Because mentally ill people deserve to be locked away and maybe pitied on special occasions. Wow, fuck, so mentally ill. Here's the thing.
Wait, no, hold on. You said this was about villains. Why are you describing fucking Batman?
I know, right? But here's the thing. Most people with mental illness comes in groups. And it tends to come in specific groups. People with anxiety and OCD will tend to have other forms of anxiety disorders. People with autism tend to also get ADD, anxiety disorders, especially social anxiety, and OCD tends to also come with it. Certain types of autism are also more prone to PTSD because their memory is more vivid, or just the type of memory is different, and it makes us more prone to flashbacks. Coming in with combined disorders is really normal for mental illness.
Yeah, generally.
For the person with one disorder, that's not normal.
No. Okay.
Also, the DC Comics superheroes, save for like Flash and some Green Lanterns, are neurotic as fuck.
Well, I mean, let's pause for a second. We were going to focus on villains. All right, as a writer, I do want to point out that a real shorthand for, not villainry, but for a good character, is to give them something complex to deal with. And, you know, with stories wherein villains who are acting crazy to begin with are important, mental illness does become kind of a shorthand. I mean, it is never directly stated, but we can safely assume that Joker's a sociopath. And a good one.
Keep in mind, until recently, when most villains were come up, they didn't just say, let's give them this mental illness. They said, let's give them these character traits. And eventually they just got exaggerated, until writers realized, hey, this guy is actually probably mentally ill. I mean, Lex Luthor is a very good example of that. He started out as just full of himself. And as it got exaggerated and flanderized more and more, he's now a full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. Mm-hmm. And an obvious case, and probably one of the most famous cases of it in fiction.
Yep. But,
but does that detract from him as a character? If anything,
no. It's a case of his evolutionary progress from being a very simplistic concept of different ideas, evolving through several different comic book artists and comic book lead writers, to who all had, in some way or in some shape or form, some kind of a hope that they were being progressive with his character. They always hoped that they were better expressing the ideas of his character. No comic book artist ever came to Lex Luthor or the Joker or Batman and said, "Hey, why don't I, completely flummox the idea of this mental disorder that's been characterized by this character for the last last couple decades?" No comic book artist ever said that. All they ever said was, is there a better way we can better represent this character trait in this character so it is more in line with practical psychology? So it's rather disingenuous of this particular post to be like, they're just being stupid and ham-fisted about it, because they're really not. And if they are, they're very sensitive to it. If you come to them with any amount of critique about them being ham-fisted with a disorder or with misrepresenting somebody's disability, all of the comic books will react the same way, and that is, oh my God, we're so sorry. Let's fix this immediately because we don't want to lose any viewership over this, and we certainly don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, because these people care. They do care about mental disorder, and they care that they're representing it right.
I'm a longtime comics books fan, and Batman was one of my big break into comics things, and I can tell you, it's pretty obvious that with the Batman villains and Arkham Asylum, a lot of it's a commentary on the failures of mental health professionals and how we handle it. Because they're ineffective, they are using, and some of them aren't even trying. I mean, Arkham Asylum's also a bit pointing out how the mental health treatment of prisoners is in real society is severely lacking.
Okay.
For example, my boyfriend's father. I almost said husband. That would have been weird. My boyfriend's father is a nurse at a psychiatric hospital that houses mainly prisoners, people who have been certified legally insane. Things that they used to do, now it's they're getting more strict about this, but they used to, in the middle of the night, go on the intercom and pretend to be God, or cover their hands in hand sanitizer and light them on fire, because that makes a strangely colored and low-heat flame, and turn off the lights just to freak these people who are already mentally ill out.
Okay, somebody's saying stay on target, stay on target. So, I don't know what that means. But can I make a point?
Yes.
We're not going to be talking about this too deeply, but DC Comics writes good characters. They do.
Yeah.
And they do it because they start out with a simplistic concept, and they move down the road, and they allow the simplistic concept to evolve. Some of my favorite characters are DC Comics.
I really love the Riddler, and he started out as just a gimmick, and then he turned into this very complex, morally complex character.
But that means that when they add in shorthand, which is the mental illness, they're trying to create a wire structure. So it is not ableist for DC to use mental illness as a reason for a person to commit crimes. And many of the people who are in DC Comics only have become mentally ill because we are projecting it on them. The only person who is certifiably insane within the DC comic universe is the Joker, and he is only certifiably insane because he's a sociopath.
And he's not even legally insane.
He's not even legally insane because he never got through the process because he seduced his psychiatrist and turned her into Harley Quinn.
And he also knows damn well what he's doing is wrong. Insane is a legal definition saying they are unable to tell right from wrong, and Joker embraces that he's doing wrong.
Yes, he knows he's doing wrong, so he wouldn't have even been put into the category of insane. So, this is dumb. This is a person who is taking their fear that they're going to be mocked for their disability and putting it out onto a bunch of characters that are solely out there for entertainment. And yes, they all dress in extravagant costumes, but you know what? I dig Joker's outfit. I do him. 10 out of 10.
I mean, I like the Riddler's, nice three-piece suits with the green tint. I mean, come on. And the bowler hat. Oh.
Yeah.
But
right, so the next
still,
topic.
I mean, Batman's neurotic as hell, too. I mean, come on. The heroes are just as neurotic as the villains. It's just that the villains outnumber the heroes.
He's illegally insane. That's just how good of a criminal is. I think we finished. Polaris just finished our topic.
Yeah, we did.
He is illegally insane. That's just how good Joker is.
All right, here it is. I'm really sick of my mother saying that I'm high functioning, quote unquote. It's like she thinks that just because I'm not completely debilitated by my autism, it means that I'm not as autistic as every other person who has autism. Like, you don't hear people saying, not as schizophrenic as others, pausing here, yes you do. Or, not as ADHD as others. Pausing here again, yes you fucking do. So why do people say that about autism?
Because autism is a spectrum, and because there's different degrees, and because you are not as stupid as you sound, I assume. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, and that's not saying that autistics are stupid. That's not what I mean.
Yeah, I know. Part of me was just like, you misphrased that.
I misphrased it badly, but that's not the point.
I didn't mention it that I was diagnosed with ADD as an adult and as a child. And I didn't mention it because it really isn't something that I walk around, and it's not really something that impacts my life a whole lot. But noticing the not as ADHD as others, look, yes, they do hear that, Pumpkin. Yes, everyone hears something like that. Like somebody
not as depressed as others.
You're not as depressed as other people that I know or have heard about in popular culture. You're not as crippled as other people that I've seen in wheelchairs. You're not as fat as other people that I saw in Walmart. You're not. People hear that all the time, and they hear it for other things as well. Oh, you're not as writer's blocked as Hemingway. You're not as.
Can I finish?
Yeah, people hear that all the time.
Can I finish what I was going to say before I badly misphrased it? She isn't as stupid as she sounds at this moment. I'm going to assume that. So she should be able to grasp the concept that she's different from the people who are lower down on the spectrum. And she should be able to grasp the concept that she can do more than people farther down on the spectrum. And that's not something that has to do with her disability. That's just something that, as a person who, any person would be able to understand that she is different from people lower down on the spectrum. And so her going like, oh, I have autism, so I can't do anything, and it's debilitating, is dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that a lot of these people who talk like that have not met somebody who's severely, severely autistic. They've only met people of the high-functioning level.
Mm-hmm.
I know a kid that has severe autism. He cannot speak. He tries. You ask him to say cookie, he'll go, kuh, 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 and then get frustrated and look like he wants to throw something. He has to use an iPad to communicate, and he can't even type out words. He needs to find pictures or find the words in the iPad's program to communicate, and even then it's very simply, and it's heartbreaking. He is 13, he's turning 14 this year, and people, it's almost like sometimes with his behavior he's a 5th grader, because communication is so important for cognitive function, and even then he's so severely autistic, but he spends half his day in a normal classroom with kids his age.
Which is amazing, right?
The iPad changed his fucking life, I swear to God.
Okay, Hope Kuma says, can attest to that you don't have bipolar like I have bipolar. Absolutely, sir. You do not experience the same highs and lows that I do, so I'm totally on it. But we both have bipolar, right? There you go. Green Hair says... Green Hair says, when we get the high-functioning diagnosis, we get held up to a higher standard, sometimes too high of a standard. Absolutely. When I moved down here, many of the people who I came to said to me something akin to, I think you don't have the right diagnosis for nonverbal learning disorder. I think you need a second opinion because you do not show X, Y, Z. That was also in reference to another thing, which it turns out I did not have when I went to get a second opinion. So that's a good thing for them to say. But when I try to explain it to some people down here, they just can't believe that I can't read the language the way they think I can, because I'm so intelligent and I'm so smart. So sometimes this high standard is something that we have to struggle with. But it's something you need to decide if you're going to care about the high standard that people put up, or if you're going to care about the standard you know you can reach, which is what came to me.
And honestly, the opposite is also true. My mother says that if I entered a work program where it's like the state programs and private programs that help people with autism diagnoses and other disabilities get jobs in the sector, my mom said I'd probably be the dream come true for somebody who's hiring someone through that program because I'm almost normal and
Hmm.
in the eyes of many. And that would be to my benefit if they're looking to hire somebody with a disability to match your quota or something like that.
Hope
Because I, and that's a terrible thing, but yeah, it can work to our advantage.
Hope Kuma says, "You're so great at X, why can't you do Y just as well?" Sigh. Same general issue. People just don't understand the limitations you have. So what you need to do is you need to understand your limitations, understand what you can do to push yourself beyond those limitations, and then just decide whether you're going to listen to that person or not. And I had to make some major choices about 4 or 5 months back on who I was going to listen to. And you know what? I've made those choices, and I'm not going back on them. I'm not going to feel bad about them. But I understand what I can do. I understand that I've been selling myself short, and now I'm going beyond what I thought I could do because I listened to the right people and I chose to stop listening to the wrong people. But that is definitely a frustrating thing, but it's also something you will have to deal with. It is part of having your disability. You cannot escape that people who see you on the street will judge you according to their standards. All you need to do is worry about your standards and the standards of the people you love. Okay? Mark or Calvin, do you have anything?
I don't have much to add on this one.
All right, so next one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm also really fucking sick and tired of hearing my teachers, friends, family, peers refer to people as crazy, insane, having X mental illness / disability / disorder to describe their violent, weird, over-the-top actions like too many dots, thanks, and then not enough dots. That's a pet peeve of mine. It's 3 dots, people.
Yes, and ellipses are by grammar standards 3 dots. Please remember that, folks. Okay.
Like, again, I can kind of see where they're coming from, but as I said, crazy is not... Crazy is a symptom of being mentally ill. It's not the act of being mentally ill. You can be crazy without being mentally ill. In its purest definition, crazy means acting without logic. Alcohol can make you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs can make you crazy. When you saying to someone, you're crazy, you're not saying you're schizophrenic, you're saying you're not thinking and acting in a logical manner.
And
So what does this person want these people to... So the first
Like, I
problem
understand,
here is
like,
that the
having
person doesn't...
Like, I understand the having X mental illness, disability, disorder, though. That one I can understand.
Yeah, but at the same time, a normal person is trying to rationalize a word for their actions, and they're probably doing it off the cuff of their sleeve. So they're probably wanting to use a word that will quickly describe their actions. And so when they're communicating with another person, they're going to use a word like insane or crazy when they're talking about behavior that is insane and crazy.
And again, I just want to point out, you don't have to be mentally ill to be insane. A good lawyer can get someone off on temporary insanity from LSD, from sleep deprivation. People have pled and successfully gotten temporary insanity because they were so goddamn angry.
there's only really been 1 or 2 cases where that's a thing. But
Well, I'm just saying that legally, you don't have to be mentally ill to not be able to tell right from wrong for a few seconds of your life.
absolutely, that's true. For me, I never really cared. I described my grandmother as a little OCD. So I
Oh,
think
same here. I got OCD, and I don't care if someone says they're being OCD. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
it's okay. No, I'm also looking at the chat, and there's a few jokes going on in here. I think that there's a distinction to be made between mental illness and a mental disorder. Sort of. We'll get on to that later. Green, if you want to comment on that to remind us, because that's a whole can of fish. Okay? But for me, the idea is I don't really care because, again, there are shades and you can be a little OCD, and it doesn't mean you have the illness. It just means you're neurotic about keeping things clean. I mean, I have a colleague who walks into work, because I work at a place where we share computers, because shifts come in, shifts go out, and he wipes down the entire computer before he even sits down. He wipes off the chair, he wipes off the desk, and he has legitimate OCD and anxiety disorders. But then there are the other people who do the same thing, and it's a shared common trait. That's all it is. And I would describe those people as a little OCD. That doesn't mean they have the disability or the disorder. That just means they have functionality like it. And that's okay.
You don't need to have OCD to have obsessive compulsions.
I heard in Germany you can get away with certain crimes by blaming the wind or was it the heat? You could possibly do that? I've never heard that before.
Well, I guess if you blame the fact that you had heat stroke.
Yeah, I guess. But
I guess. Well, keep in mind that legally, somebody who is severely mentally deficient would be automatically insane if you cannot prove that they know right from wrong. Like somebody with the mental ability as a 20-year-old with the mental ability of a 3-year-old, if they committed a crime.
Absolutely. But to go back to this person and the thing we have on screen, I don't care. That's just how I've always been as a person. If you want to use medical terminology to describe something that might come out of medical terminology, I guess. I've never heard of someone having a little bit of a broken leg. But
I've heard of someone being a little bit pregnant.
Oh yeah, I've heard of someone being a little bit pregnant, but I've never heard someone have a little bit of a broken leg or sort of sprained ankle. But I can get what they're doing and I can accept it. It's never bugged me.
And don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure bipolar was used to describe mood swings before it became bipolar disorder.
Yes, because you were going between poles. Yes, that is a thing.
So when you're saying you're being bipolar, you're just using the word as it was before it was a diagnosis.
Hope Kuma also mentions that most people don't get that there are spectrums. An example would be I have long depressive cycles with brief manic flare-ups. My brother is a rapid cycler. He can up, down over a weekend. That's absolutely true. I actually have about 6-month spurts, which make it easy for me to adjust when I'm on medication, because we'll know right about when my bipolar is going to start flaring up. For instance, right now I'm in sort of an in-between between having a plateau and I'm slowly becoming manic, and I can tell because my sleep cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. I can't fall asleep as easily and I wake up earlier. So I'm going to be talking to my doctor about it once I get back to once I get back into the office and see what we're going to do. But I also have treatable where I can just force myself to go to bed, and hopefully that'll stave off the manic for a while. So yeah, that is absolutely true. There is a spectrum, and you can be kind of a little OCD, and you can be kind of a little bipolar, and you can be kind of a little psychotic. Now you don't want to be, but there you go.
Exactly. All right, so.
Anything from you, Mark?
On this one, no.
Okay.
All right. I believe that S.H.I.E.L.D. found this one.
Oh, can I read this? This is beautiful.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't saying communication is the key to a relationship really ableist? Because, some people genuinely struggle with communication, and that saying sort of invalidates their commitment to their relationship because of something they can't help. I'm not sure if I worded it right, so I apologize if I've somehow offended anyone. Well, no, darling, you haven't offended anyone, though you did word it, and you worded it well, but
you still called some eye rolls.
That's not what communication is key means. It's not.
I mean, again, I have autism. I have trouble communicating. I try hard as all fuck to communicate with my boyfriends when I have them. I only have one boyfriend at a time, just to clarify.
Aw. No, continue.
Yeah, but seriously, the effort to communicate is just as important as the act of communicating. But the fact is the communication is key. Is literally doesn't have to be communicated well. It's just sitting down and talking. That's it. The communication is key. Is literally just saying you got to sit down and talk about things that are wrong.
I want to make a point that if they can't talk via communication, they can sign. If they can't sign, they can write. If they can write, they can look at another person's eyes and do facial expressions. If somehow they can't do any of those, what are you doing dating a pickle?
or a dildo.
Or a dildo. Like, seriously, folks. Okay?
Oh, but, I mean, my boyfriend, he was having so much trouble telling me how he felt, so he wrote me an email.
Right. Polaris says you can have as many boyfriends as you want. We're not here to judge. But
No. I'm saying that because my boyfriend listens to these things, and I just want to reaffirm.
Just making the point is, generally, if you are with another living human being who has the mental capacity to be in a relationship that is an adult relationship, you have a way to communicate. They will find a way. If they love you, they will find a way. And I can attest...
Even if it's interpretive dance!
Even if it's interpretive dance. I can attest that sometimes it's a struggle to express yourself when you have a mental illness, but that the devotion you feel to the person, even if your mental illness is getting in the way of you communicating it, is no less powerful. And so it's not ableist to try to show that and try to say, you know, the communication I'm trying to do is key.
Love will find a way.
Woo! Yay! We should start a crowdfunding campaign to get you 1,000 boyfriends or 1,000 pickles.
I only want one boyfriend. And I don't like pickles. They give me stomach aches.
Well, if you guys want to get me pickles, I'm in love with kosher dill pickles. I'm also actually rather fond of any kind of food. I'd be more than happy to take food off you guys.
You know what? Crowdfund to get me a horse.
Ooh, yeah, she works with horses, so that would be cool. As for me, I don't really need crowdfunding, but it's nice of you guys to think that way. Thanks. Mark, do you have anything to say?
I would happily accept all the crowdfunding.
Or 1,000 cucumbers, nature's dildos.
Or, if I oddly enough found in the disability tag once, zucchinis.
We're so off topic right now.
Yes,
we are. Let's continue.
This one annoys me because they're getting a definition so wrong. It's generally harmful to autistic people when you point out that bad people are bad by talking about how they can't empathize, but at the same time, like when someone says cops are monsters who can't empathize with black people, why is your main focus defending autistic people and completely disregarding the entire situation? Like, this person went from one topic to another, like, mid-sentence. Why do so many things on this website come down to a fight of racism versus ableism? Like, your feelings got hurt because someone said it's bad that you can't empathize. Who cares? Shut up now is not the time. Here's the thing. Like, they're talking about when people get offended, like saying bad people can't empathize. Those people do not understand what types of empathy we're talking about. Autistic people can, in fact, empathize in the fact of, oh, you're hurt, let me try to make you feel better. Oh, you're crying, why are you crying? Please let me help it stop. That's the type of empathy autistic people have. What they have, their trouble with empathy is social empathy, which is, what is that smiling? Why are you smiling? I can't figure out why you are smiling, and is that a happy smile or I'm going to kick your ass smile?
Agreed. Or, you know, this goes back to assuming that autistic people don't have empathy. It also goes back to somehow tying in two very separate ideas, and that's intersectionality, which in and of itself is hard to deal with. But, look, the word bad, really, is a word that shouldn't be used to describe anything. And pointing out,
Asshole rolls off the tongue much better, don't you agree?
yeah, and pointing out that bad people are bad is usually not helpful to an autistic person unless you explain why they are bad, and they can't empathize is kind of a flat way to put it. So this entire post is essentially trying to make a problem that doesn't exist actually exist.
Yeah. Although I have to point out that many people on the autism spectrum struggle with a black and white worldview, and it's hard to see the shades of gray. So sometimes they might have trouble seeing a bad part of a person when they have in their idea that the person is good. I guess I'm trying to explain. I'm explaining badly, but...
No, you're explaining... I'm dying over here. That's why I put myself on mute. You're explaining it quite well, and I think that's all we really have to say on this. This is trying to turn a race versus ableism fight into a real thing when it's not. They're not mutually exclusive. You can be African American and be disabled, or you can be white and be disabled, and so there really isn't a racism thing going on. There really isn't, and the whole police thing. Really, why are you talking about entire groups of people being monsters who can't empathize when that's clearly not true?
I know black cops. I'm pretty sure they can empathize with black people just fine.
So the fact that you are not only trying to make a fight, but you're also just making an entire group of people out to be monsters makes your opinion pretty invalid in my point of view. Go back, rethink how you're going to talk about this, and come back to me. I'll discuss this later with you. Shoo. Shoo.
Shoo. While depression and anxiety are mental illnesses, they do not carry the stigma personality disorders and psychosis do. So honestly, ableism towards people with depression is very, very different than ableism towards people with borderline personality disorder, for example. That's what BPD stands for. I used to think it was bipolar disorder. I was so wrong.
It can mean both, but
yeah, but
it's generally
in this context, I'm pretty sure it's borderline.
Yes, it's definitely borderline in this context.
Yeah, and honestly, I just want to say, this is somewhat true. However, next part. You won't get called crazy or psycho if you have anxiety. You will probably be called those things if you have a personality disorder.
Wrong.
Wrong, yeah. I've been called... There's a reason why I call myself Crazy Logic. I've been called crazy.
I have anxiety disorder due to NLP, nonverbal learning. And you know what? I get called crazy and psycho all the time. The one I hate the most, the one that hurts the most, is toxic. Being called toxic because somehow I understand I need to control it, but it hurts when people call me toxic because it's like I'm choosing to act this way.
It's implying you're a bad person.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that, no, the situations that form around me aren't toxic. It means that I don't get it. Okay, so the first part's absolutely true. The second part is false. You're going to be called everything under the sun if you cause enough problems for people to start calling you names. And
yeah, I mean, when I have an anxiety attack, I get into defensive mode, and I actually get a bit hostile. I will tell people, fuck off. I'll tell them, fuck you. If it gets bad enough, I will actually have blackouts. And thankfully, most of them have been when I'm across the country from the person and I just say some really, really nasty things. But I wouldn't be surprised if I have an in-person blackout if I punch someone in the face. But I get hostile, and when I get hostile, people have called me saying I was being a psycho. I mean...
Yeah. No, I mean, that's about it. That your whole premise is wrong. I'm sorry, darling. You really, the end result is wrong. I'm sorry. Next. Oh, are we on the end?
Yeah, that's the last one.
I thought we had something about NFL.
Oh, yeah, I have that on a different thing because you can't screen cap an entire goddamn news article.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our final little bits. Looks like we clocked in at close to 2 hours, but
Oh,
there's a
well.
lot to talk about.
So, all right, let me open up to the page share.
So what we're going to be talking about now is we're going to switch a little because, me and Crazy have been talking about girl things for a while. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're going to be talking about sports.
Mainly, this guy wrote, I'm sure it's an opinion piece, but it's why the NFL draft must be abolished. And his reasoning is a bit suspect.
Now, wait a minute. It should be abolished because it's unfair, or it, treats one set of players better than the other. Is this a racism article? I told you we were doing ableism.
No. Goes both ways. We let PFT commenter run a reader submission, which is apparently the thing to do now. So this is a reader hot take from aisle. Oh wait, is this satire? This too is satire.
It's satire? Okay, folks, we've reached the singularity. We now cannot tell the difference between an actual SJW and a satire piece.
Yeah, but
How can you tell it's satire? What's the tell?
it says on the top.
Oh, well, that's a freaking tell right there.
Crazy!
Wow,
I linked it to YouTube. I linked it to
so
you
hard.
guys too,
Crazy, you're our research department. How dare you mess up? Okay.
I linked it to you guys too, and you didn't see either. Nobody reads the thing in parentheses, or the italics thing at the top.
Absolutely, that's true.
From the page.
Okay, just so we're all aware of what was happening, basically we were going to talk about how the NFL is ableist because they prize themselves on
Athleticism. Here, let me find the.
But since it's apparently a parody, and since all of us got duped by it...
Wait. Let me just read the relevant paragraph, and let's see if the watchers in the chat would have pegged this as satire. Ergo,
okay, guys.
At its best... Here it is. Ergo, at its best, the televised NFL draft is hurtful to millions of viewers who only see the event as a reminder of a society that refuses to laud its less fortunate. At worst, it's a gluttonous orgy of ableism, and until we change it to those of us who are labeled as less athletic are stuck with sloppy seconds. That is the final paragraph of the satire article. Would you have been able to tell on reading it if it was satire without knowing beforehand? No, we have to wait for 30 seconds.
Yeah, we have to wait for 30 seconds. So right now they're talking about girls. It's a meritocracy. The best analogy I've found that helps others understand is to tell someone, telling someone with disabilities to just be whatever. It's like going outside and telling the weather to change, which, it could happen 95% of the time, but you just got to do it with a really lucky word. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to peg it. I didn't peg it.
Yeah, and again, I linked it to both Shield and Cal here, and they also read through it. Or at least skimmed through it, right?
All right, so...
Should I pull up the philosophy one?
Yeah, just go ahead. No.
Actually, we're running over time anyways, aren't we?
Yeah. So we'll put this into the next episode, because I know Mark has a nice long discussion that he wants to have. So...
Yeah.
That'll
with
be next.
Margaret Sagner and the history of ableism and eugenics and such.
Exactly.
Yay.
So do we do the internet idiot or the feel-good story first?
Internet idiot first. We might as well. So we're going to be bringing in an internet idiot every week. This one is a very special case. It's someone that Cal and I have been watching personally.
We're not going to name this person.
No. But
we are going to tell you that they are otherkin as a goddess. And are they a multiple system?
They believe they are a multiple system, yes. They're also transgender.
Indeed.
And also health at any size movement person.
And a health at any size movement. So this person has been having troubles, and we want to see if we can sort of sort out where her troubles are coming from. So if we can.
Yep, this is a doozy. It comes in parts because it's over multiple posts that actually started in March.
Okay.
And coming to a head today.
So red is our protagonist of this fine story, and blue is other people. So if you could scroll that in just a little, please.
Sure.
So I'm starting to dislike my therapist. Ha ha. Okay, well, sometimes you do legitimately have a reason to dislike your therapist. The reason why, I saw her with my boyfriend.
With her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend, not my boyfriend.
The therapist's boyfriend.
Yes.
This girl wouldn't have a boyfriend because she's not a dirty cishet.
Also, she's apparently aromantic.
I don't get it. What's the issue? Is someone else who reblogged it?
I know you wouldn't. I mean, they assigned a self-proclaimed cisgender heterosexual woman to talk to me about transgendered issues. What's the issue here? What could be he problem?
Problems.
Well, I can guess that the problem is that this beautiful princess was assigned a therapist that, yes, and she wasn't assigned another being that transcended humanity like she did, and instead was given a regular human being of the common rabble. And of course, I think that might be the problem.
Well, I can understand her having issues with maybe having someone who doesn't understand what she's going through. I think my therapist is angry with me. She insists she's not trans, but how can I be wrong? Maybe I pushed her too far because now she refuses to talk about it anymore. I don't want to make her annoyed. I would just like her to be on our side. She's also saying I'm not making any progress, which I don't understand. I've been doing everything she asked. I tried to reconcile with my parents, but they refuse to accept that I'm a trans demigirl. I literally cannot advance from here. It's not my fault, to be honest. Any advice? I admit I've hit a brick wall here. I know she's trans, but she won't admit it. Should I give up?
Now, okay, I can... Your parents not accepting you're trans would be very hard, but I suspect it's the demigirl part that they're not accepting. Am I here?
Yeah,
I imagine so. There's a whole like this girl is I've been following her passively for about 2 months now, and she's constantly talking about how oppressed she is and how much her life problems are, and I think
she's
most
triggered
of her
by the word
hangups,
fat.
yes, and she's overweight, and she talks about how her doctor is telling her that she needs to lose weight in order so that she wouldn't continue to have pains, running pains down her legs and down her spine, and so she's angry with her doctor because her doctor said she's fat.
Yeah,
and,
that's. We might take that up for our fat acceptance episode if you're willing.
Yes, so you can see there's a similar behavior where you have a therapist who's trying to work with this woman. She is a woman. She's not underage. She's working with this woman to inform her and help her move through her issues. And this special snowflake refuses to accept anything is wrong with her at all. Everything's perfectly fine with her. So why is she seeing the psychologist in the first place? I don't know.
But there's... Oh, sorry.
There's some questions going on. What is a demigirl? As far as I understand it, it is, you're a little bit girl, but you're mostly boy. No. It's
mostly girl, but a little bit boy, or something like that.
Sorry, it's like you're mostly girl, a little bit boy. So it's
there's demi-girl and demi-boy. We would
kind of drop it.
So she's basically a tomboy.
Yeah, she would drop it
exactly. Demigirl is replacing tomboy.
Why do we need another word for it?
Because people desperately want to be trans.
All right, and how does she know her therapist is trans? Or am I not understanding something? Yeah, it's clearly projection on this part. She wants so badly for her therapist to conform to her way of seeing that she's trying to convince her therapist that she's seeing things in her that cause her to be transgender, so much so that she's insisting to the point of the woman refusing to talk about it with her anymore that she is trans. So it's really bad projection with like trying to bully her into being trans.
Yeah. And wait, there's more. This has many parts.
So this is her like a couple months ago. So what's the next bit?
Next bit. This is still a couple months ago.
Sometimes I follow my therapist home. I make sure she doesn't notice me. I just want to see if she's really cishet or not. Is that a bad thing to do? Because my best friends think it's a really bad idea. But she's opposed to many things. I just don't know what to think. Okay, yes, darling, this is a bad idea. It's called stalking, and generally you don't do it unless you have a reason to, and seeing if you're
private investigator with a license.
Yeah, like being a licensed private investigator or like you're something else, but not if you're trying to see if someone's cishet, because generally if you ask someone and they say, yeah, I'm cishet, then yay. They've answered your question, darling.
Oh, wait. This is going back to the last one.
Okay. So, just so we're aware, she's stalking people.
Yes, she's stalking people. So somebody reblogged and this person is not helping the situation. They're just encouraging this behavior. So what you need to do is hire a hypnotist. Clearly she's got some repressed transphobia or something that won't allow her to face the truth. You'll need to get rid of those problems if you want to get through to her. The question, how do I convince her to be hypnotized? So not only does she have this, like, at this point, it's delusions. At this point, she's having delusions. And people on Tumblr are encouraging her.
They're moving her forward. They're making her feel like it's the right thing to do. This is dangerous. This is what happens when you stick a bunch of people with delusions in a place with other people.
Not even delusions. They're not even having delusions, but you just convince them that this is the way of thinking, so they play along.
So I think some of the viewers might be wondering if possibly our special snowflake here, if they are possibly joking along with it. Oh yeah, how could I possibly convince her to be hypnotized? No. After communicating with this person,
this person is not
obvious.
A troll.
The post here from our special snowflake, our internet idiot. They are completely serious here. This is an actual question, and it's continue on other conversations that she would have that we might reveal in other ways with different topics, because she's just a cornucopia of mental illness right here.
We'll just call her Red.
So Red has clearly delusions, okay? I'm looking at this from a psychological perspective. She's clearly delusional beyond her other kinness, which I can accept as not being a mental illness. But she's clearly delusional to think that somehow you can force another person to, that there's sides in the gender argument, that you can force another person to be that hypnotism is going to cause this, which it's not. And that it's okay to stalk people to determine whether they're truly cishet or not. So far, I've not actually listened very much to this. We had a short discussion about it, so I can't wait to see how deep this rabbit trail goes.
All right, so oh darn, I didn't screen cap one thing, but basically what happened next is she realized she's getting a bunch of calls from her therapist, and then she's found out her therapist does not want to see her anymore and is taking this issue up with the school. She asks if anyone knows a good lawyer. Someone says their uncle is a lawyer, and this is her response to that. Great. So the problem is that my school wants to kick me out over a joke I made on Tumblr about my therapist, who I didn't even call by her name. She claims that I'm harassing her, and that I ruined her relationships with texts that I allegedly sent to her boyfriend. And the family lawyer doesn't want to take the case for some reason.
The likelihood that this girl did send text to this boyfriend are relatively high, considering that this girl was already stalking the woman to try to find out if the woman was pretending to be cis.
And straight.
Okay, let me tell you guys something about what we learn in psychology school. There are boundaries to everything you do with someone you're working with. You don't bring them home. You don't. You don't let their problems become part of your life. You do not, you certainly do not allow them access to your phone. I don't know how the girl got her boyfriend's phone number, and you know what? I really don't care. I don't even think the therapist was at fault for this.
I'm thinking she just found out her boyfriend's name and did a public record search. And admittedly, some therapists are a bit more loose with the boundaries personally. I mean, but my therapist, I have her personal phone number, but that's because in case I have an anxiety attack, she can talk me through it, but also because I essentially work therapy programs. She's also my boss in a sense.
Well, it could also...
weird.
But you wouldn't ask her for her boyfriend or husband's phone number, now would you?
No. I mean,
Okay.
The only reason why I have her mother's phone number is because she owns essentially owns the ranch I help out at, so if there's an emergency and I can't get a hold of anyone else, I call the mother because she's the owner of the property on the legal paperwork.
Okay, but what I'm saying is this is a woman who is seeing this person in therapy, and it has turned into a scary situation for a therapist. It has gone from helping a person to the person stalking her to the person now harassing her and ruining her relationship with texts sent to her boyfriend. Okay?
Probably about her gay affair with a patient.
Probably.
Or something like that. I cannot wait for this to be This is going to end up on an episode of Stalked on Investigation Discovery, I swear.
What I'm going to say right now is this. This girl has stepped over a line, and I've gone from pitying her and her delusions to being legitimately angry. This is what we risk every time we work with a patient, is that their delusions are going to start involving us, and it's going to become dangerous for us. But you know what? Not every patient is dangerous. This girl just happens to be one of them. And now this girl is like, I'm going to act entitled because I'm going to lie.
And what's happening here is that Tumblr is encouraging her. Whether people are thinking she's a troll and going along with the troll, or they genuinely believe this and they think this is acceptable behavior because Tumblr has somehow made this acceptable behavior. This is a serious thing, and this is what happens when you demonize people being cisgender and straight. This is what happens. You give these people who already have delusions even worse delusions.
So this is the reason I pulled this forward is not to taunt this woman, and I think, is that the end of her little journey so far?
No. There's
Okay.
a few more.
I do want to clarify something. I'm going to be very blunt. This is why I don't like Tumblr. I don't like Tumblr because this comes out of Tumblr. She would have been fine if she had had a support system that called her on her shit. In fact, she seems to have a support system, but she's not willing to listen to it. Instead, she runs into a little hug box and goes, oh my, what should I do? And people encourage her idiocy and do so out of the goodness of their hearts. So this is why I'm making this show, is so that we can be the anti-hug box, the respectful, kind, loving anti-hug box, the hug box that calls her out on the shit she's doing, and hopefully one day we'll knock some sense into someone's head.
Yeah, so here's this one, and the next one, part 6, so I think like 8. By the way, the principal is a total asshole who has it in for me and wants to add my previous offenses, quote-unquote, to the list. Like when I defended myself from a white man who insulted me during my protesting of human rights. She probably hit him. Or when I broke a chair because I naively thought it would support the weight of a real woman. Or when I was disrupting class with my behavior because the professor wouldn't respect my pronouns. Her pronouns are the special snowflake kind, right?
They're void self, and void.
Yeah. Yeah, what a horrible person I am. Okay, I can understand the third point of breaking a chair by sitting in it. That wouldn't be an offense. However, all the others are offenses and should be dealt with, and yeah, that's generally how these things work. You have offenses and a final straw happens, and you eventually get kicked out of school. They're not going to kick you out of school for one reason, especially higher education where people are paying for it.
Okay, so just so we're clear, all right, I'm going to cut through the Tumblrina bullshit, wherein she makes everything sound like it's against her. So the principal is a total asshole. So that means he probably is trying to follow the rules and be as empathetic as possible while being firm. And
Yes.
adds previous offenses to the list.
Which is generally school policy for everywhere.
All right? Like when I defended myself from a white man who insulted me during my protest for human rights. So what probably happened was the guy was arguing with her and she felt angry and punched him and she claimed self-defense.
She claimed just self-defense probably because, I don't know, he called her a bitch or something.
Yeah. So probably the man was not totally not at fault, but she overreacted. Or when I broke a chair, okay, that's...
That one I wouldn't call an offense. It really depends on whether or not you are very, very fat and sitting on one of those flimsy plastic chairs or not.
If she is large and in charge and she's sitting in one of those chairs, I don't know. I mean, she should maybe bring her own chair or something, I guess. But when I disrupt my class with behavior because the professor won't respect my pronouns.
Which was void. Void. And again, she calls herself a goddess.
Okay, guys. Again, serious talk here. If somebody refuses to do your pronouns, wait till after class, because causing problems for people who want to legitimately learn and who do not have the same hang-ups as you is something you should do, and it's something I did all the time. I was in a human sexuality class, and I have been raped before, and you know what I did when I got triggered? And I really did get triggered while we were discussing rape. I walked out of the room. And then after class, I went to my teacher, and I explained to her why, and you know what? Nothing came of it. You don't have to be a disruption just because something is causing you pain.
And honestly, most college professors don't give a flying fuck if you get up and leave the room. They're going to assume you're going to take a shit.
So, I have zero pity for her on that one. She should not have made her political and self-viewpoints into a spectacle that disrupted the learning and education of other people.
At this point, I'm wondering how much money her family donated to the school for her to even get in. I think she got into the school via nepotism at this point.
Continue, please.
This one's simple, but this one, does following somebody counts as harassment? This is a legitimate question they're asking. And
yes.
This is where it goes from rage-inducing to almost pathetically funny.
Yes. No, yes. Okay. Yes. If you follow someone without their permission to any place that is private, yes. That's harassment because you are making that person feel threatened.
Alright. Yep, our lawyer, who in other posts she says is a family friend, who she thinks is going to retire soon, is saying he's obligated to take her case anyways because retiring when your friend's daughter is in trouble
No, he's not retiring.
Thing. Yeah, he's not retiring. He's just calling you on your bullshit. Sort of. This another post will be I'll show. Yep, our lawyer won't take the case. You know what hurts? He's not retiring. He just doesn't want to take this case. He has a problem with me personally. He's arguing with my parents downstairs right now. I honestly don't even want his help anymore. I just want him to be schooled. Hard.
So, wait a minute. Her parents are now arguing with him because they can't believe that she did this?
No. I think it's because of the reason why he won't take the case. We'll get to that.
Okay, so...
But she's also being an entitled little bitch face right now.
Why don't her parents just have her address the concerns? I mean, wouldn't it be easier for her to stand up to him and tell him what he needs to know?
I
In
think
fact,
she's going, "Mommy, Daddy, help."
oh,
Like, her parents aren't accepting the fact that she's a demigirl. But they're clearly willing to try and sue for her to get into school, and I suspect she's lying to them about the circumstances. Or something. Then again, she probably told the lawyer because... But still.
well, we cannot judge and assume anything she has not put on here.
True. That's just the reading I'm getting. But here, she's gone into the rage phase of grief. "I don't want to be part of a school system that purposefully holds back minorities and LGBT plus people anyways. We don't gay and black and minorities, get special scholarships to go to higher education? Don't they get help in affirmative action?"
She's not actually a minority. She's actually white. She's transracial.
Oh, right, that. Yeah, here.
Oh God, you guys didn't tell me that. You told me she was a POC.
I didn't say anything.
I didn't really mean much until this moment. She's actually transracial.
Transethnic. Oh dear God, we got to do a topic on transethnic.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm trans-ethnic Japanese, but that doesn't mean I'm pretending to be Japanese.
I'm pretty sure she's actually claiming to be trans-ethnic Japanese.
Oh God damn.
Japanese, so she's a fucking weeaboo too.
Okay,
she
just
also
continue.
hates anime, but we can continue.
No, weeaboo is just liking Japanese culture more than your own. It's funny because our lawyer would only take my case if I plead insanity, so I'm thinking there might be criminal charges involved here. And got help? LOL, dude, I already got quote-unquote help, and look how it turned out.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
I think that's why her parents were arguing, like, "You just called our daughter insane, yada yada yada." But...
Well, wait, she is.
Yeah, she clearly does not know the difference between right from wrong in this situation. This is an example of mental problems causing legal insanity. You could almost say, especially with the, do you know if following somebody counts as harassment?
Mm-hmm. Continue.
Here.
So her only help is if she gets help.
Yes. Basically, I'm going to be kicked out of school because my cishet therapist claims that I've been following her and harassing her boyfriend. Of course they believe her and not me. You admitted to following and harassing her on your blog. And not me. Oh, by the way, part of the calls, her therapist found her blog.
Oh.
Of course they believe her and not me, and I mean, who would want to believe a trans, pansexual, aromantic woman of color? Like, how transphobic do you have to be to try to remove somebody from your school because you're uncomfortable with them? They're trying to remove you from your school because you punched someone in the face and followed your school-appointed, clearly, therapist. It's obvious this therapist is through the school if this is causing her to get kicked out of school.
Mm-hmm. She thinks she's Japanese, apparently. Calls it like he sees it, yep. So, is that the end? Is that the end of us so far?
That's the end. What a wild ride.
Dear Red. Dear Red, you clearly don't understand what it is to separate right from wrong. You clearly do not understand personal boundaries. You're clearly in a lot of pain because you think you're transsexual, ethnic, and you're also a void, and you're also a goddess. I'm going to put this forward for you. You need help. And it's not help where you sit and you try to convince your therapist that they're transsexual in order to get them on your side, but rather you empty your goddamn teacup, get your bootstraps on, and decide that you're going to figure out what you're doing right and wrong if it kills you. So, Big Red, if you are out there and you ever
Well, this
hear
isn't Big Red. This is different Red.
Sorry, Little Red. Little Red, if you ever manage to hear this, as I'm sure you'll find it eventually, here's my viewpoint as a psychologist. As someone who's an otherkin, And as someone who understands that you're in a lot of pain right now, you need to stop pretending. You need to get yourself off Tumblr, cut yourself off, find some real friends. Find friends who will actually show you what you're doing right and wrong. Get yourself socialized and get over it. In fact, if you can find a river, build a bridge, and get over it, that'll be better. But you know what? If you continue at this pace, you will be locked away. You clearly do not understand the difference between right and wrong in this scenario, and they will put you in a hospital. So you have a choice. You can own up to the fact that you are probably mentally ill, get yourself on a path to wellness, and learn what are and are not your quirks, or you can end up in an institution where you could probably be for a long time. Your parents don't deserve this. Your school doesn't deserve this. Your therapist didn't deserve this. Her boyfriend didn't deserve this. You ruined a relationship because of your politics. Is there no point you're going to step back and say to yourself, hey, this is going a little far? Even more so, you're now demonizing a man who is being honest about your legal prospects. You need to take a step back and wake up. Because otherwise you're not only going to ruin your life, but the life of everyone around you.
Oh, she hasn't updated.
Oh. Well, we'll keep following this. If anything comes up, we'll talk to you guys about it. But that's my honest opinion at this point. She's ruined a relationship, and she's causing pain for everyone around her. No sympathy.
Yeah.
And thus ends Chapter 1 of the tragic life of Little Red. Little Red Riding Hood. We should just call her Little Red Riding Hood.
Or we could just call her Snowflake.
Well, Snowflake, we might be able to use Snowflake somewhere else.
Yeah, true. We'll save Snowflake.
We Gen Xers really dropped the ball on parenting. I got a lot of hate because I didn't play the everybody is a winner gets a participation trophy and make them earn the rewards they got. A hug from the ECT machine. Well, she's clearly not little. No, but if she's all fat proud, I'm going to call her little anyway, because I will. Anyway, are we going to do our happiness thing so we can get these people on their way?
I am presenting it now. Now, you know that social justice warriors will talk about how everyone hates gay people. Something opposite of what they viewed, of their views, happened at the Dodgers kiss cam yesterday. So, here's the article. On Saturday, the kiss cam at Dodger Stadium... Okay, not yesterday, but on Saturday the article came out. Yeah. On Saturday, the kiss cam at Dodger Stadium caught two men very clearly in attendance to watch Los Angeles Dodgers play the Arizona Diamondbacks as a couple. It proceeded like most kiss cams at stadium do, lingering until the patrons smooched their neighbor. When the men kissed, noticeably rancorous cheering filled the grounds. Let's see if you can...
You can't hear it, but...
There's a kiss cam.
There's a kiss cam.
And if... here, you know what? I wish I could give you the link, you guys. I'll see if Otter Jesus can tweet it.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? My Twitter is at Crazy Logical One. I will tweet that myself. Sorry, I keep forgetting that I'm presenting the... it was an uplifting addendum to the weekend dominated by sports spectacle. Hours later, two archaic think boxers, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Sorry, I'm dyslexic.
No, I only know it because I'm a boxing fan.
Engaged in a heist that worked millions into their net worth. It was a moment that hijacked American culture and regulated everyone to pay-per-view sparring matches between grinning crowds who tapped in neutral knowing that the purse was secured. That's the fight that lasted all of 2 seconds?
Yeah.
This is why I prefer pay-per-view wrestling. You're at least guaranteed about 3 hours because it's all scripted.
But here's the thing. No matter what anyone thinks about gay marriage, what we do know right now is that there is an acceptance of a gay relationship that is
Yeah.
growing,
Yeah, the rest of this article is about the fight, so I'm just gonna stop presenting.
regardless of how other people view it religiously. So every time you see an SJW saying how homophobic everything is, remember, kiss
An
cams
entire-
don't discriminate, and apparently neither do the Dodgers.
Or the fans of the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks that were in that stadium all cheering like it was any other kiss cam.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have reached yet another end. It seems like this is getting slowly bigger as we go. We now have 10 viewers. I thank you guys so much. And remember, the tiger population in India has risen 10%.
30%.
Sorry, 30%. And the world's just a little nicer. So go out there, make
Unless
some
you hate
people
tigers.
happy. Go out there, make some people happy, love on the tigers, and have yourself a good week, okay?
And
If
don't
you guys-
spill the spaghetti.
And don't forget, if you liked this broadcast, please put a likes down below. If you hated this broadcast, put a likes down below. And if you want to hear more of this, then press that subscribe button over there, because it's not going anywhere. But
Yep.
you might, and so you want to be alerted while you're away.
All right, folks, thank you so much. Have yourselves a day.